the students really get to take advantage of that deep integration into D2L that we're going to take a look at in a moment, that makes it more seamless for them to use the program and feel like they're really part of the Tennessee college system. They're in their own learning management system. They have the ability to engage in assignments that are both adaptive and higher order, and they can monitor their own progress. So there's special reports within Connect where they can monitor their progress beyond their grades. And lastly, there's help, as I mentioned, for instructors and administrators built in throughout the program so that they can get a tutorial just in time about how to use a particular feature. In Connect, there are a number of data reports and analytics that enhance the grade sync. So the grades from the Connect assignments are going to feed right into the LMS gradebook. But in addition to that, for faculty, for students, if you want to monitor progress in learning concepts in the Learn, Smart, Achieve adaptive assignment types, or if you want that specific outcomes assessment around the rubric, we have reports that I'll show you how to access those. And again, our help, which we'll also take a look at, is built right in, easy to access. And lastly, before we get into the program, I wanted to draw your attention to many companies have help and implementation support. Our instructors who have worked with us to design this technology and constantly refresh the content are also curriculum and leadership consultants who are very well aligned with the high impact practices, the academic mindset research, really looking at non-cognitive factors, and they really work with us and with institutions to design a course that aligns with their objectives, to help design professional development that goes beyond product training, to support faculty rolling this out. So we've paired our product directly into the learning management system, D2L, that's used in Tennessee. So I'm going to show you the deep integration and we'll get into the product directly. So you can see that there's the option to look at each assignment type and also to go directly into Connect. So in my content of my course, every assignment that I set up in the Connect course on the instructor side is deep linked here as course assignments within the learning management system. So I can simply click on the assignment and it's going to launch me directly into this Connect assignment. So I'm in as an instructor, so you can see I can quickly go in and edit this specific assignment directly from my LMS. And I already have a student in progress. And I can also view the assignment types directly from. And you'll notice here there's simple navigation on the left-hand side that can always take me back to the college's LMS. I can edit the assignments, I can preview. So this is an example of one of our assignment types that was designed really to support authentic reading and writing tasks. So I've already created this assignment. It's completely customizable and we're looking at it in the instructor account from the student view. Power Process is an assignment type and capability that was created to support students around any reading and writing process. It aligns directly with the learning objectives in both reading and writing to support authentic task work through the process of writing, not skill and drill. So for example, students will engage with a text and they'll be prompted to apply strategies that these are strategies that as strong readers and writers we all apply, and that students will be prompted to, students who are struggling, who are in learning support will be prompted and guided to learn to apply these strategies, such as predicting what you'll read. So I work through a series of questions that include highlighting and annotating, defining words in context, and you'll notice the subject of the reading that I'm doing is actually a reading from Carol Dweck. We try to infuse and offer assignment types and content that really supports students thinking about and reflecting on those non-cognitive factors, as well as engaging in building their critical reading and writing skills. So in this case, I'm going to be looking at words that are challenging for me and highlighting them and defining them in context. And so I'll work through this series of strategies until at the end of the assignment, I have a process reflection. So this process reflection allows me to see how I engaged with these various strategies that were assigned. And this process reflection I'll show you from the instructor side is something the instructor can view as well. So typically in reading and writing courses, annotation is an important skill that students have to learn. It's an important college level skill, not just for that course, but to use in other courses. When students hand in their annotations on paper, they cannot talk about or convey what was their process, what strategies that they apply to engaging with the text. The technology actually monitors their process and gives them a readout of how they engage, what order they engage in strategies over what time, and prompts them to reflect on that. So we've built in metacognitive reflection throughout our technology. And again, students have the opportunity to engage in reading and writing is a recursive process. And here they have the opportunity to review their work, to make edits, to correct spelling before they submit. Now I'm going to return. And then in our adaptive assignments, so that was an example of one of our authentic reading assignments. In our adaptive assignments, which I'm going to bring you into from the instructor side into the student view. This is where students learn the foundational concepts. So whether it's reading or writing, there are foundational things that you need to know before you can write a strong thesis statement in your paper. You have to know what a strong thesis statement is. So students have the opportunity to learn in an adaptive fashion that is tailored to their individual needs. And we've embedded things like study tips throughout, so that there's never just loading time on the screen, but that they have just-in-time study tips as they're working through the program. Always reminders of deadlines and the time that an assignment might take.
Let's start learning. This adaptive...
We've embedded, throughout the adaptive study, there's a coach who pops up to basically guide them about what they're going to do. And there's always a reminder of the learning objectives that they're studying. The other thing that's important to note is that typical programs, you've seen tons of skill and drill multiple choice. We've worked hard to align with the highest order learning objectives, so students are actually engaging. We have highlight questions, we have drag and drop categorized questions, which better align with the actual objectives that are in reading and writing, rather than attempting to test and assess students with multiple choice. And there's embedded feedback throughout, so students are getting just-in-time feedback about why their answer is correct and why their answer, what's incorrect. They also have just-in-time learning resources. So I have suggested resources along the right-hand side here that I can pull up.
When you revise your first draft, you should always make sure that your thesis statement is specific and state.
So again, there's guidance from the coach, but there's a little mini lesson built in here with examples on just what they're learning, just in the moment when they're learning about it. And again, you can see questions aligned with the reading, which is the topic. And this is the metacognitive element that's built into our adaptive learning. So students are asked before they submit an answer to each question, are they confident that they know it? Do they think they know it? Are they unsure? These data points, as Karen mentioned, feed into the learning science and the algorithm of the engine, and they also generate for both the student and the instructor a metacognitive report. After they've been working through these assignments, they can see how frequently they're confident and they're not correct, or how frequently they're not confident in their learning and they are correct. And these reports have been important for many instructors using this software to actually have conversations with students, particularly students in learning support, to help build them up. There are a lot of students who are lacking confidence and are actually making good progress and getting questions correct.
So do y'all collect a level of data on how often people change their answering patterns? I mean, like, do they start off random and stay random, or they build towards one, or digress towards another? Have y'all looked at kind of individually what happens with people, if there's any kind of...
Yeah, I don't have answers for my particular product, but these are the kinds of questions that our data scientists are looking at and the data behind the system. So your question is, are students, randomly answering at first?
Well, not so much randomly. Is it, I mean, I guess the idea is the whole process ought to either build confidence, or it might degrade confidence, or are they pretty much staying at the same level of I don't know-ishness all the time? I mean, kind of what, I mean, I'm sure that would change a little bit, because I'm math, so, they hit new topics, and then it all maybe starts back over. But I was just curious if y'all had seen...
Typically, qualitatively, I don't have, a study or a white paper to give you on this. What we have seen is that over time, instructors encourage students, answer this honestly. Over time, they're starting to know it, because in the system, they're encouraged to read the feedback. They have the learning resources built in, so they're starting to learn the content as they go, fill in the gaps, and then get questions correct. So they're making progress. The other thing is, if they get a question incorrect twice, it kind of forces them into, because here it's suggested resources. I haven't done enough questions that have gotten completely incorrect. It'll put a resource right in front of them, have them go through it. And if they continue to get things correct, it'll move them to a related learning objective that they might, find more, be able to respond to more easily. So eventually, the goal in this adaptive system, so this module, this topic, every student's actually working towards 100% progress. And this has been used in learning support level courses around the country. Students get to 100% in these modules. But one student might spend, do this in 30 minutes. And another student might spend 2 hours on the module. They need more time. They're not getting it immediately. And the reports for instructors will actually show that. So you can see the time that students are spending, the raw number of questions that one student is answering compared to another student.
I've piloted this with some stats classes and developmental classes a couple semesters ago, so I'm a little bit familiar with it. I wish I had asked my students that question while they were going through it. It's like, did this change the way you felt about answering? I just didn't. So I was just curious.
Overall, we find that students do feel more confident as they move on in the system. But thank you. And then as a student, so this is an example where I've gotten a lot of questions correct. So the system's saying, you've missed a lot to the student, and I'm going to have you take a look at this learning resource now. You need to look at it in order to make progress and move on. The other thing that students can see right here in the bottom, there's a little pie chart that helps them monitor, and you can see I just opened this assignment. I haven't made a lot of progress, but it helps them monitor their progress on each of the objectives in the topic. And then over to the left-hand side, students actually have more advanced, these are student reports. So the student can actually look at a report if they want to see, if they're studying after they've completed a number of modules and preparing for an exam, if they want to see what were the most missed questions for themselves, their percent scores on different topics, the most challenging learning objectives, they can simply click here and see what they're struggling with in different topics. So again, right now, this is what I've been working on in this demo, identifying the thesis, and this is where I'm getting questions incorrect. So I can have, if I take the time as a student, I can have some reporting for myself to see how I'm doing and what I'm struggling with. And this is also fed into the instructor reports, so they can also see at the individual level and across the course what are the topics that students are spending more time on or struggling with. I'm going to go into just...
Any other questions
Yeah.
on this portion that we can answer?
So from the instructor perspective, you want to create a course and set up assignments, or the administrator and you creates the course, shares it or copies it to faculty, and you might want to edit assignments. So you'll notice I'm in Connect here, and you can see that I have all of these assignments deployed directly to the learning management system. Adding assignments is as easy as clicking Add Assignment and then choosing my assignment type. So we have static question banks. We have adaptive assignments in Learn, Smart, Achieve. Power Process is that assignment type that I showed you that creates the wheel that supports you customizing a critical reading or writing assignment, teaching students process. We have a writing assignment that supports your rubric and also peer review. So if you want students to engage in giving peer feedback on their writing, which is an important skill that's in the outcomes, outside of class, the system will actually support grouping students and allowing them to, allowing you to give students guided questions. So I'm going to quickly click into Learn, Smart, Achieve so you can see how to add, how simple it is to add a new assignment.
So what is the refinement capabilities on, like, say I don't want to cover some objectives for whatever reason.
Yep.
I'm thinking more math because that was my experience, and
Yeah.
we periodically not necessarily cover everything. Does the
don't have
reading
to.
side have the same sort of thing?
It's
You filter
exactly.
those out.
Yep, I'm going to show you right now. We're going into, these are all the modules. So first you get to choose amongst all these modules what really aligns with what I'm trying to do in the course. And there's more coverage than anyone typically uses in a course, and sometimes you might have a need for a particular section of a course where you have more ESL students, so you want to get into this particular grammar topic with them as support. So you can actually uncheck at the learning objective level. Yeah. So I'm going to quickly just create this and click next. And so I can see this is approximately, on average, students spend about 10 minutes on this assignment type. I can rename it, I can simplify it, or keep it with the module name that it has. I set the due date here, very simple. And then, of course, I want to deploy this right to my LMS. So if I have deployment on, so as soon as I assign this, it's going to be right there in D2L as an individual assignment for the students.
You just have to pick a folder.
I have
for
to
it
pick
go
a
into.
destination. So that assignment's all set. So
this is integrated directly into our LMS.
This is your LMS.
I didn't do mine that way.
Yeah. And now it's deep integration, so the students will see each assignment. They don't have to just open up and go right into Connect, which is nice, so they can go right to their assignment. And you can have other non-Connect assignments completely integrated with it. It's a seamless experience. And their grades, when they complete the assignment, automatically sync right to the LMS gradebook, which is nice. We have additional reports to support drilling down in certain areas, like in adaptive, but you don't have to go to Connect to see grades. It'll be right in your LMS.
And so if you're going to create your own assignment, I'm assuming you lose a lot of the support capabilities of, like, the wheeling and things like that. I mean, if you just want to do a custom kind of question or something like that.
In Connect?
Yeah.
Yeah, so in the Power Process is fully customizable. So I'm going to go into that next. So here's where you make the choice as a faculty member or the course lead. I'm trying to teach students. I already have, particularly in English courses, reading and writing, there's already readings that each individual instructor or the department as a whole want students to engage with. And so I use that Carol Dweck example. I can actually upload any reading that I want. I can select a document, and we have an entire, I think in this particular product that I'm in, there's 80 readings to choose from. And in reading, Lexile levels are very important. So it's actually in the state objectives. So I can actually filter by Lexile ranges for the learning support students. I can filter by word count. I can filter by themes. disciplines, genres, purposes, and modes. These are all the key areas that, these are the key areas that in English faculty usually make decisions about what kinds of readings. And then I can narrow down, and so you can potentially choose one of our readings that we've permissioned from third parties, or you can upload your own reading.
And you can embed that back into that low stakes progression through the, I was trying to think of that earlier, where they were identifying, I know this, I don't know this, I don't
Yeah,
know
so that reading that'll be embedded into the process circle assignment. So I'll show you it, not the adaptive assignments. The adaptive assignments are all customizable down to the learning objective level, but you can't put your own readings in it.
And you don't really get to choose the questions, right? I mean, the questions are kind of prefab. You choose objectives, and then
you choose objectives.
Then we use your pre-generated.
Yeah, and our questions, each objective typically has at least 20 questions behind it. Yeah.
You can build your own questions, but they're not going to be incorporated in the adaptive piece. But if you wanted to build like a drag and drop question or a video question or something like that, it has the capability. It just won't be.
Well, that's kind of what we ran into, because it was hard to get them to practice. If you were going to build something that's a little different that was in there, it was hard to get them to practice it in that functionality, which means you had to create something else to kind of get them to do that, which isn't a bad thing. It just is back to how many places do they have to go. If that doesn't
one
exactly
place, their
match.
LMS will have all of their assignments integrated right there, so they just go out to that assignment. It's about what you want to create. So you can create a static assignment from our bank and add in your own content into that. You can create one of these power process. They'll all be in the list of deeply integrated assignments. So just to finish off on the instructor and administrator view of setting up this assignment, so I selected a document. I can also assign, there's a lot of use cases in English and reading where I want to assign students, especially in a co-requisite where you're really scaffolding support for the English 1010 course. In English 1010, students have to find their own sources. They have to write a paper that integrates sources. So I can actually assign students to upload their own document, and I'll provide that scaffolded guidance. So they have guided practice in analyzing their source, but each student will analyze their own source that they found. In this case, I selected a document, and this is where this process circle that I showed you before, this is completely customizable. So I can choose from, and these are all, rigorously tested. We have all of the learning research behind each strategy. These are all accepted best practices and strategies in reading and writing. So previewing the text, identifying your purpose for reading, asking questions, scanning for new vocabulary. So you can choose from amongst the strategies, or you can actually edit the text and prompt. So I can change and just say, okay, there's no headings in this. I'm going to change the guidance that I'm entering for the student. Again, during reading, we can give them guidance on any particular area. So if it's a source, we can have them evaluate the credibility of the source, look at the supporting details of the source. So really you're designing the assignment to align with the purpose of the assignments and to scaffold assignments that are in the composition course or the college level course if it's a reading course paired with a college level course.
Is it pretty easy to share these assignments or what's
Yeah, so if
well?
you just, and I'll show you that, if you build a list of assignments, you can either share or copy. So share is your lockdown option if you're the course coordinator, and let's say you want all adjuncts to be able to have the same, they can actually add additional assignments, but they would all have the same course set. And if you copy, like let's say to your colleague, who they can then customize and edit everything, but they don't have to start from scratch. So yeah, I'll go in and show you that next after we finish. So after reading strategies, click continue. And then you have the opportunity to name it whatever you want. And give detailed instructions. And of course, always setting the date, the points. So maybe I just want this to count as 5 points. And again, I'm gonna deploy this assignment right now directly to my learning management system. So it's really not an extra click. I just have to say where in my folders in the learning management system I want it to go. So simply clicking assign here, and it's automatically now visible for your students, unless you can make a start date that's later, so they won't be able to see it. So from here, you were asking about copying and sharing as an instructor or administrator. So I'm in this particular course. I'm going to go into my courses. I have a lot of courses just because I do a lot of demos. And here is where I can edit, I can view and manage my outcomes, and I can copy and share courses. So for example, if this were a writing course, there's typically a rubric and writing outcomes. I can actually set up my rubric, and it could be 4 points, 5 points, whatever. I can set my descriptors, and I can set the categories of the outcomes. Okay, and then it's this little gear icon where I can choose to share this section. So again, share means that all I have to do is put in faculty email addresses, and it's going to send them a lockdown version. So they can edit the deadlines of the assignment, but they can't change the assignments themselves. Or I can copy it, and if I receive a copied course, I can just edit it and make it my own, but I don't start from scratch. So you can see here, again, I have the choice, and it reminds me what's the difference between copy and share, so I can make the right decision. And again, all I have to do is put in an email address. It's that simple. So I've copied, Karen and I copy courses back to each other all the time. Any other questions from the instructor, course administrator?
I just noticed you use points. Do you have the, maybe, I don't know, most people might not do this. You would have weighted averages too, so if like I want to set the quiz category to be 10%, then I end up wanting 15 quizzes instead of 10 quizzes. I don't have to go back in and change my overall point system. I can just add a new quiz and then
you get to set all of that in your LMS.
Okay.
So whatever you set.
Because we're still grading through our D2L grade.
Yeah, you can still grade through your D2L gradebook. So just.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, if it's grading through the D2L gradebook, is it also grading through Connect?
Well, there's certain things that you'll interface with Connect in order to see. So, for example, on the writing assignments where you want to put detailed feedback, if you want to put detailed feedback and grade with outcomes, you'll just launch as an instructor right to Connect. You'll see your assignments to grade.
What I mean is as a student, are they going to possibly see two different grades?
They would never see the grades sync, so their final grade in Connect would go right to the D2L gradebook.
Because you just talked about in your LMS, you could.
Technically,
well, no. When you're setting up as an instructor in your LMS, you can set all the weights for your assignment. So this is an assignment.
And that'll go to Connect's gradebook.
Well, Connect feeds to your LMS.
So if they look at the gradebook in Connect, are they going to see those things that you set up in
Connect,
your
it's
LMS?
what students see if they looked in Connect is just a report of what they earned as a grade. It won't show your overall weighting because you have other assignments in your course, probably most likely. Typically, people have other assignments beyond Connect assignments. So their grade book, we don't try to become your grade book. Right. But we have reports where they can see their grades on an individual assignment, but then the grade book would be the LMS.
They're not going to look at Connect and see your overall grade is an 82.
It doesn't give you an overall grade. We're not trying to be your grade book. We're just
is that because it's embedded? Because the way I did it, it definitely had an overall grade that we weren't. We were just linking out of our D2L.
Yeah, we've come a long way with deep integration, where we really recommend that people use their LMS.
Because that was the issue. And we have the issue with my labs products too, because it produces this grade out there that we just tell them to ignore because the grade's happening back in D2L.
So you said you use for statistics? So that's Connect hosted by? Okay, so yeah, that's a slightly different.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. I mean, there were some things, and so I knew it was a math versus English thing, and we had some other issues too that came up then. But
yeah, I'm going to go back into the course and show you the instructor view of reports. Did I answer your question though?
Yeah.
So within Connect, as an instructor, obviously you're going to look in your LMS gradebook and see the overall grades. But if you want to see,
are we logged out?
This is the Solstice app. Okay, what was the key? R7.
R7, R9.
R7.
Yeah. So we did fall 16. We tried to connect those files.
We back
We
on?
had some
Good to go. Okay.
We had some
Solstice
great
keeps
issues,
kicking me out.
which is frustrating.
So the performance tab allows you to see a deeper level of reports. So, I mean, grades will be directly in your gradebook in the LMS. But if you want to see, monitor student progress on, let's say, adaptive assignments. So you have a series of adaptive assignments they're working on, and those are the assignments where they're learning foundational concepts. And you just want to see how are students doing this week on these topics that they've been assigned. I'm just going to pull up a sample report for you. The typical report that instructors engage in, just to look at adaptive and foundational learning, is the performance summary report. So this is where, when we talked about how different students are going to answer different questions and working at their own pace, the report will actually show every student in the course section, the time each student has spent, which often differs quite a lot in adaptive assignments, the question count. So this is like how many questions did they attempt to answer, which will also be very different in an adaptive system for one student versus another student. Their overall progress. So overall progress in an adaptive system is progress towards mastering the learning objectives in that system. So you could be at 80% progress, but in order to get there, you answered 50 questions and got half of them correct. And then also the unaware percentage, it just gives instructors a snapshot. They can drill into a deeper level metacognitive report. So this is a snapshot of like what percentage of the time they're unaware that they're correct or incorrect, based on how they're responding. You can see when they last accessed any of the adaptive assignments, which is usually, if it's a long time, it's usually a good sign that they're not engaging. And then you can drill down into details for a particular student. And so I would say this is the most used report, but we have many other reports.
I'll go back to that.
Sure.
Trying to read some of this. Okay, so like student 10, what's their grade on this assignment right now?
Student 10, right now I'm seeing their progress. They might not have achieved their deadline. They might not be at their deadline. 62% progress.
Okay, because this question count is 1 out of 2.
I know, this is a mock-up report. I'm not showing you like real student
Okay, well I was
data.
just
Because
confused
of
about what
FERPA, I
those
can't
numbers
show you
meant.
real student data.
Okay, so but hypothetically, right?
Yeah.
The question count says how many assignment questions they've done on
It
what?
would be a much higher question count than.
Right, but I mean, this is on this assignment?
Yeah, because I pulled up assignment 1. I could pull up
Right.
all assignments in adaptive or.
So in a real situation,
Yeah.
that question count, those would all be out of the same number of questions, because I'm seeing a 2 out of 3, or 1
Because
out of
it's
2, 5 out of
adaptive,
9.
they're all going to be a different
Yeah,
number
sure.
of questions.
Sure.
But realistically, if you saw 80% progress or 60%, the students answered 10, 20 questions,
Sure.
like at a minimum.
Okay.
And they would have to have had a high question, percentage of correct answers to be at 82%. I think what we typically see in student data for one, because this is a pretty extensive module I was showing you, they would be, have like 30, 40 questions that they answered, and they would have, a raw score that wouldn't look like a good percentage perhaps, because this is a learning system where they're making progress and they're working to mastering the objective, but they're not necessarily penalized because they got questions incorrect the first time.
Sure. Now, is that question count, is that how many they've gotten correct out of how many they've attempted?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay,
So if you want to just see the raw numbers to know, wow, this student had to do a lot of work in order to make this progress, you'll be able to
Right.
see that. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Any other questions on this side of the room about reports?
And I assume we could go in and review all those individual questions.
You can view, down to like the learning objective level. What are the learning objectives that
But
they're
I mean, their
showing?
responses?
Their responses on each, like all 50-something questions. You
Like if a
can't
student comes in and says, I'm still confused, comes to me after doing the assignment, says, I'm still confused on why I got number 17 wrong. can I go in, pull it up, and look at it?
Well, because it's not a static test, it's not a number 17, like this student has a different question.
Well, right,
than that student.
but this student
You can go
had
in,
their 17th question that they saw,
they have a missed questions report, so you can actually look at the missed questions with them.
And they
so
can
we
pull it up.
And
right
that'll
in
pull
there.
up the specific questions,
Okay,
yeah.
so we can see the specific questions they worked on and their
Yeah, under
specific
missed
answer.
questions report, yeah,
Only they missed
by the
it.
student.
Only if they missed it?
Yes.
So we can't see the ones that they got right?
You can't see what they've done. You
So
can
this
only
is
see
just
what
for the adaptive piece. If you're using like any of the static
question
multiple
banks,
choice
then everyone's
or
answering the
question.
same questions, and then you can get category reports and look at everyone's answer to a single question.
Yeah.
But for the adaptive, yes, you can only see if they missed it. They
In the
can
adapt-
challenge questions from within the question type. So if they feel like maybe the question was unfair or wrong, like worded incorrectly, they can actually type a challenge in the box, and that will
That
go
goes-
directly to our developers.
What, did you have a question? Sorry, did you have a question? Oh,
Yeah, I was-
oh, okay, oh,
Okay.
okay.
We're just complaining about Pete, all those questions you like to.
Yeah, oh,
I
okay.
was just saying that's key.
Who else has got you 1 out of 2 getting 62% of it?
Yeah, no, it's
Way to
not
go. Way to go, Matt.
real
Ross.
data.
It's true, the rest of us are just kind of.
And then the other, there's a lot of different reporting options, but the other one that's specific to English is the Learning Outcomes Assessment. And this is where if you decided to set up a rubric in the system, you would be able to view and pull up a performance report around the actual rubric criteria. And we have, again, help and built-in guide. So the guide shows some of the screenshots that I'm going to show you. So how you set up the rubric. And then the reports around the rubric you can run for your own class section, for multiple sections. If you're the course administrator, you can run and compare how students are doing on the rubric for all of your sections. So here's an example, different categories in the rubric. So again, what I didn't set up and put in real student data for this, but I can choose which sections I want to run the report for, which assignments, which students, and which outcomes. And so we've had a lot of course leaders will use this for accreditation, for pulling reports for their English course. They'll be able to have that program level view of the rubric outcomes from their own rubric.
So you can do that across multiple sections.
You can do it across all the sections. If you share out the course, if you break the connection, if you copy the course and each instructor customizes, it won't work because they might change the rubric. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah, I want to make sure. Okay.
Was there anything for English that you didn't see that you wanted to see before we?
And then the
Move
last
on
thing I
to
wanted
that.
to point out, because the all-important help. So along the way, when we were in here as an instructor, you'll notice when I click Add Assignments, I don't know if you noticed, there's always success, there's embedded tips. And so when you pull this up, it actually does tell you about each assignment type, what it does. So the help and support is embedded throughout. And there's always the Help tab up here takes you to both videos that show you how to register, how to log in, how to use a particular assignment type, or support. You can go directly to the digital support. So if you have you want to make contact or have a live chat because you're having a technical issue, I've had instantaneous live chats, just to get help with something. So it could be a technical issue, or it could be I just want help because I don't want to go through all these tutorials. Just tell me how to do X, and you can live chat the question. So I'm going to turn over to, unless there are other questions about English, I'm going to turn.
I have one. So Connect with McGraw-Hill is kind of your catch-all term, right? So I know
Connect.
we use Connect for biology, for instance. Do you have, I'm guessing this is kind of access code driven for the student?
For Connect, yeah. So we have codeless access, and Karen's going to get into that right after Matt. But we have yes, there's different products in Connect English. So the first screen that I showed, I'll just go to that real quick just to give a visual to go.
If you're doing it the traditional way, they would either buy with a credit card online and don't need an access code, or they would buy an access card in
you
the
can make a
bookstore?
choice as an institution. For your reading course, you could use Connect Reading. For your writing course, you could use Connect Writing. You can decide because it's a co-rec and you really want to scaffold up to English 1010, you can use Connect Composition. We have all kinds of support.
That's where I was headed.
Yes.
So if there would be a way where they could get one code or one
Yes,
level
and
to bundle the learning support piece with the college
Yes,
level
and
piece
Connect,
and build it together.
Connect Composition is 4 years of access for the one price, and they can use it in learning support, they can use it in composition. We've built in, we're actually building now with a board across the country a new, an updated pedagogical guide for using it with the co-rec. But you can scaffold all the composition assignments with the same kinds of modules and support.
Is there a way to put it in the same D2L shell?
Right, you just put it all in the same D2L shell. You just pair Connect Composition. And it has a built-in handbook, so freshman composition, you always need a handbook. That's built into Connect Composition.
For how the entire course operates. Maybe one is, hey, here's where you need to be done the support piece. At a bare minimum, you need to be done at this date. So you would structure this timeline for the students. And then what we do is, from here, they're going to start their learning path. So we started with our initial knowledge check to find our starting point. Now we're going to start working problems, much like we would do in a homework environment. And I'm presented with a problem here. I have a built-in explanation. You can link Alex with an ebook, so I can open up my ebook here and go to this section of the text where this topic is covered. I have videos built in, so I can watch a lecture video of this topic being worked out. And if
you already have it pre-associated, like if I pick a book, if somebody else picks a book, you've already got it pre-associated that it finds.
Yep. Yep. So all that's built in. Now, if you have your own stuff, you can also link that to topics in Alex as well. So I can see, here's my textbook stuff, and here's things that my instructor thinks would be helpful.
Supplemental stuff.
Yep, supplemental stuff. Yep. So all that's built in here. So say I reviewed this. I'm going to go ahead and start working this on my own. And what you'll see here is we tell the students, here's how many correct answers you need in a row to show that you've learned this topic. So in Alex, it's not just a one and done type thing. Like I said before, we want students to attack topics or problems from different ways to make sure they've really learned it. We show them one way to do it 5 times, they're going to figure out just how to game the system. We don't want them to do that here. We want to show them variety so they really get it. So it's sort of like a game here. So they see how many times they have to get it right. I have a unique version of the problem, and I can ask for an explanation here if I need it again, but let's say I know how to do this. I'm going to use my solve button again, so pretend I worked this out. I maybe had Alex notebook and did my intermediate work, and I click check. Alex is going to say, okay, excellent, keep going. You got one right. So that's cool, I got it right. And if I click next again, I'm going to get a new version of the problem. Now let's say that I really know how to do this, okay? I don't need help. I'm just going to get it right again. And if I click check again, you'll see that Alex is going to cycle me through a little faster. It gave me double credit. I didn't get it wrong, and I didn't ask for help. So we're not going to make me do it 5 times. We're going to cycle me through a little bit faster. Now this number of times students have to do it correct will vary depending on the problem. And whether or not, it may be something that, hey, based on the assessment, we think you know how to do this, but we're not 100% sure. We want you to review it, so we may ask you to do it 3 times. In this case, it's 5 because this is a topic that Alex is sure that I have the ability to handle, but I don't currently know how to do this. So we're going to ask you to do it a couple more times. So let's get it right once more. And we can give you access to this after today if you want to play around with it, or even if you have kids at home that are in school now and you want them to try it, it can be a really good experience for them. So I got 3 in a row. So Alex cycled me through, and if I click next, I'm going to get a little celebration. So keep up the good work. And I'm going to continue my path and pick a new topic to work on. And you'll see up top here in the carousel, I have a list of all of the topics that I'm ready to learn.
So
go ahead.
conceivably there would be variety around, I mean, because all those were basically the same 3 questions. Conceivably they would be asked that a different way
Yep.
at some point,
Yep.
graphically or numerical, tabularly or something. Or
Yeah, it's either, and it depends on the, when you build your course, what you're going to see is there's certain topics where there's tons of variety built into that topic, or there might be others where we have it as a couple of different topics. Because one of the things we do in ALEX, for each of the content pieces, we study what we call the health of each item. Meaning we're looking at all the data of students using ALEX to see what kind of quality is this topic. And by that I mean, does it have good inferential capabilities? Meaning if somebody gets this right, can we make reliable inferences that they can do other stuff? Or maybe everybody gets this particular topic wrong. Is it the topic itself that is a problem, or is it what's leading up to it? So all of those things. But yeah, conceivably yes, but it's done in different ways. If that makes sense.
So what's the rough size of the problem set for ALEX?
I mean, a single ALEX course could have, depending on which one you choose, there's a lot of flavors, but could have 500 plus topics. Most instructors will create a course that has somewhere around 250 to 300. So,
like items under that, are we talking 20,000 items, 100,000 items? Just the ballpark. I'm not holding you to it.
It depends on the topic. It could be hundreds. It could be thousands. Now, it depends on. When you think about something that's algorithmic, what we have coming together is what we call a language file and a math file. The two always merge together to create a unique version of the problem with its own language and its own calculation. For certain topics, maybe it's 100 or it's 40 or 50 because after a certain while, the algorithm doesn't make sense anymore. Like it has to be constricted. But most will have tons of variety. Like the students shouldn't see the same thing over. So it could range from, I would say, at the lowest, probably like 30 to 40.
I guess I really meant more like problem style. I mean, I would say when you algorithmically put those two together, you're just looking at the same problem with lots of variety.
Mm-hmm.
So but it doesn't matter. That's okay. That's a lot.
Okay, there is a lot of that. Yes. Okay. So up top here. Oh, question. Yeah.
Just a question about the. It seems like this is very. Looks at their knowledge state and what is the topics they know, and these are the topics they're ready to learn, which is one thing for a certain structure of a class, or an online class, or an oriented class. But if I'm just doing a traditional lecture, where I know, okay, Monday I'm going to cover these topics, and Wednesday I'm going to cover these topics, can I say, okay, my students, I only want them to, even though, yeah, they may be ready for the stuff, we're not going to do it till 2 weeks from now, so I don't want them to start working on that yet.
Yeah, so you can create something in here called objectives. And instead of making ALEX a completely open-ended experience where everybody's working at their own pace, sort of based on how they're ready to learn, you create objectives, which is a sequence in how you want them to cover the topics. Meaning, an objective could be akin to a homework assignment. Meaning, objective one is what I would normally do in a traditional homework setting. So you can create some structure there. Now, what ALEX still is going to do is, if you're in homework 3, or objective 3, and there's some prerequisites that you haven't mastered that you're never going to be successful with unless you do them, they're going to come along with you. So ALEX is always budgeting a plan for that student to make sure they're successful. So the folks who teach in a very traditional lecture-based format will create and sequence these objectives to follow their syllabus exactly.
And it's not problems. So we can't go in and say, I really like these 4 problems that either I created or I see from a pool and assign them.
You can. So you have, oops, that's not the one I want here. So you have 2 options in ALEX to do that. So when I say you create an objective you can think of, now let me, okay, so I'm going to show you the, this is an example from Dyersburg. So this is their, I think this is the support version of the course. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to edit this, I'm going to go to class summary. And I'm going to go into the objective editor here. So this is a screen where I can build, think of this as building the adaptive portion of the course. And what they've done here is in each of their areas or modules, they've created a specific objective. An objective comprises a set of topics that they've selected. Here I could come in, this is aligned to the textbook. So for example, from section 2.1, they want students to do ordering integers, absolute value of a number. So that's where you select it. Now, this is the adaptive piece. ALEX also has an assignment piece. So in addition to this part that's going on where we saw the pie and the carousel, you can also create a more traditional based assignment where you select the specific problems and everybody gets those specific problems. So the way Dyersburg does it, the pie and the adaptive piece runs the course. but they do their testing and things like that using the assignment feature. They create a test in ALEX where they select the problems for the students. So the key when you create these courses, and we'll work with you on this, is finding the right balance. Meaning, like, the adaptive piece is really powerful. It's going to help students fill in gaps. That's going to ensure that they've retained things. But then you also want to do some, things where you ask everybody the same problem to ensure that they have it or they're meeting certain competencies. So you can do both within the system. So this is how, and you see this course right here has 965 topics. So when we build the course products, they have a huge range of topics, more than any one human could do in a particular course. But the reason why we build them so big is so you have a lot of options. And then also you can create very flexible things like co-recs, where you have tons of prerequisites and you can select what's important along with your credit-based material. Last thing on the student side I want to mention, and then I'll finish up the instructor side here. So we had, the last thing I want to mention, when we talk about learned and mastery and sort of holding students to a standard, one of the things we do in ALEX over time is we periodically give students knowledge checks. You can assign these or the system can automatically generate them. But what we want to do is make sure that when a student's in learning mode and they're using those supports to help learn a topic, there's no guarantee that they're going to remember it tomorrow or that they're going to remember it 2 weeks from now. So what we do is we periodically recheck them, meaning the help goes away, and much like that initial knowledge check, we give them a mini assessment. And we want to make sure they've retained what they've learned. And if they've forgotten something, we may put that back on their pie again for them to rework. But really the goal here is to create retention for the long term. And what's really cool is some of the early studies at ALEX looked at ALEX students versus non-ALEX students 2 years after they took their course to see who still better retained the material, and it was the ALEX students. The idea here is almost like a practice retrieval, meaning you've learned it today, let's bring it back again to make sure you remember it a week from now so you're going to keep carrying it with you. One of the things we really like to look at when we do studies with institutions is not just did ALEX make students more successful in their current course, but are they set up for success in the future? And that's really, what's important. Not only do you want them to get in the co-rec and be successful, you want them to go on to the next course and be successful too and carry it with them. So it's really built with that in mind.
I'm going to ask an off-the-wall question.
Yeah.
But, what's y'all's implementation like with middle school and high school? Do y'all have a strong base there? Are they using these kinds of products? Because they don't seem to be coming out with a whole lot of attention. And it seems like that's a natural place to live. What's this market like? I would say in K-12 we have a lot of ALEX usage, but some of it, even though we start in grade 3, a lot of it really starts around middle school because that's when they start to identify that students need intervention. So we start seeing it there, and we start seeing it in high school, but a lot of times the ALEX usage is for the students, just the students who need the support. Not the ones who are taking their Algebra 1 course they think are on track. One of the key implementation challenges we have in K-12 is we know ALEX can be really effective, but it's getting ALEX to be used enough along with all the other stuff the teachers are told they have to do in the classroom. So unless the school really emphasizes it and says, yeah, we believe in this, it's going to make a difference, but hey, you got to make sure you cover all these Common Core standards and you got to do this, but it tends to be an overwhelming thing. So
and I'm sure it's not free.
It's not free either, yeah. So it costs the money. But the schools that have really implemented it as part of their core curriculum do really well with it. And I've seen it work really well in specialized programs like English language learners and things like that, where you may have a student come into a school who just came from somewhere in Central America. They actually know how to do the math, but they're struggling with their English skills. So instead of putting them in a remedial math class, they can work in ALEX. It's bilingual in English and Spanish. Anytime they can toggle between the two, they're continuing their math work while they catch up on their English skills. So it's a complicated question.
I didn't mean this. I just was curious.
No, it's a great question because conceivably students are better prepared in high school. You're dealing with less challenges when they come to
it. Just raises the philosophical question: is do you after the car's wrecked, do you invest in good medical procedures to put people back together, or do you invest in safer cars that keep people from getting hurt in the first place?
Yeah.
And so it just, where the money goes. I just was, because we see all this a lot. I was just curious, like, what the K-12 situation was.
And maybe we can send them some information on Utah where they're using, they use ALEX in K through 12 and in higher ed. I think we have a white paper.
Yeah, we're working with the state of Utah on research around this. The other thing we're working on now, which is really cool, is a college readiness program with the City Colleges of Chicago. So we have about 8,000 students who are going to become seniors in the Chicago public school system. So we're partnered with the two-year institutions in the city of Chicago to give them something called ALEX PPL, which is our placement program. But it's not just a placement test that says, hey, go to this course. It has an embedded ALEX learning component. So these students are going to take this assessment their senior year, similar to your sales program. They're going to work on filling in any gaps their senior year, take the placement again, and then that'll be their guaranteed course if they attend one of the two-year schools in the school system. So we have a lot of successful programs like that. This is one of the larger ones, and they're applying for a Gates Foundation grant around it too, which is pretty cool. Just to recap some of the roles, because I want to show you data and analytics, because it's really a strong part in ALEX, but we have 4 distinct roles in ALEX. There's an administrator role. An administrator can see everything about a campus. You can see all instructors, you can create instructors, you can create something called a master template, which is a course that sits on a hierarchy that you can share out with adjuncts and other folks. So there's a true administrator role, an instructor role, there's a TA role, and then there's also the ability to share class access. So if you're team teaching, I could share my class with you. You could see everything. I could give permissions for what you're able to do. So it's really flexible in its roles and having other types of roles. Okay? Oh, I thought you were giving me a warning. Okay. So we're going to talk about reports and analytics, and I'll show you a few here in a moment. The level of data that you can get out of ALEX is awesome. And not only is it really good for what you do in the classroom, but we've done some really neat research projects with institutions as well on the assessment data. For example, we have a number of schools that will look at things like the initial knowledge check data and compare that with how students perform in the course, with the idea of saying, what are the topics that students had in their knowledge state that were determinant on whether or not they'd actually be successful in the course. And institutions have used this to redesign their curriculum. They can say, well, everybody tends to know this topic, but if they know these 5, they tend to outperform their peers at the beginning of the course. So we've had this study done at a lot of different levels. It's something that we help with. Like I read about course revitalization and academic audit. I think it could be really neat with some of those programs that you guys have going on. In addition to the D2L integration, we provide APIs that expose all of the reports in ALEX. So if you ever wanted to do reporting directly into Banner, or skip D2L, or get some type of other granularized reporting, you have that capability as well. So let me show you a couple of examples here. And I'm going to go into something that has some data in it. So even though ALEX is adaptive, the reporting here gives you full visibility into everything that students are doing. Sometimes when they find, or when instructors tell me when students find out what they can see, the students are a little surprised. Oops, that's not the one I want. 1 second here. There we go, more instructor module. So in this area, I have some sample data built in, so it'll give you a nice view of what an ALEX class would look like from an instructor point of view. So let's say as an instructor, you're getting ready to lecture today. Or maybe you want to do a small group lesson or a mini lesson with certain students. You could come in here, you could choose your course, and one of the things I can do at any point in time, I can come into, and I have dashboards here that will sort of highlight the key things going on. So I can see students' progress overall. There's a message center here where you can message students. So if you want to send them a template letter or a form based on like, hey, somebody hasn't logged in a few days, I'm going to send them a nudge. Or somebody's progress is behind where they should be at this point in the term. You can message them from ALEX. It can forward to their regular email as well. But let's say I'm getting to do that lecture thing I talked about. I could come in and one of the most popular reports in ALEX for instructors is this ALEX Pi report. At any time I can come in and I can look at all of the topics that I put in my course, and I can look at if I've created objectives or those assignments. I can see how they're organized. For the class, I can see what % of the class has already completed this topic, who has it remaining, who's ready to learn it. Meaning if I were to teach this topic today, I shouldn't get a blank stare. Like students are able to handle this. And then the last column here is who's tried it but not succeeded. Meaning they tried it in ALEKS but they just can't get it. That might be a good topic for intervention. And for any of these, there's a lot of hundreds up here, I can click on the percentage and I can see the group of students who makes up that group. So here are the 45 students who in this case have this topic remaining. So I may send them a message and say, hey, we're going to work on this today as a small group, or et cetera. And if I need an example problem, at any time I can click on a topic, pop it up here, and we could even cover this topic right here in class. Yes?
Same question Pete had about English. Can you sit down with an individual student and pull back up the questions they've attempted?
Yep. So let me show you this one. The other most famous report is something called time and topic. So this is the one where students get a little like, when you have this conversation with them, they're like, all right, my instructor means business. So this one comes in and it will show you how students are spending their time in ALEKS, how much time they're spending each day, how many topics they're attempting, and how many they're learning based on that, so you can see their quality of time. But let's see like Carlos as an example. If I click on Carlos, I can change the, and again, this is the teacher view. I can see how much time he's spending each day, which is the gray view, how many topics he's learned, which is blue, and how many he's attempted but not learned, which is red. And for any of these, I can click in. I can see the topics that he's worked on, and the check boxes and the red X's are how he progressed through that problem. Meaning the first one here, he got it right the first time, got it wrong twice, got it right. So you can start to see patterns like, who's quickly accelerating through the topics, who's getting it but seems to be struggling. And for any of these, I can click on the attempt, and I can see the problem that they got and their answer. So what's really nice about this, and the folks at Dyersburg shared this with me, is that I may come in and I may say, Karen, how are things going? Yeah, or is everything going okay? Whereas I could check her first and say, hey, I notice you're struggling with simplifying a fraction. Why don't we work on that today? Or maybe I have identified 4 of you struggling with that. Let me bring you together so we can hit that as a group. The other one that it really dispels is Karen comes in and tells me, I do my ALEKS every day, and it just doesn't help me. Well, I can come in and I can see, do you even click on the explanations? And if you do, how long do you spend in there? So what's really nice is, even though it's adaptive and it's doing different things for each student, you have visibility into everything that's going on. These reports are really cool. One of the things we're working on now as a research project is something we call nudge alerts. And what we want to be able to do in ALEKS is, you can find everything that you need, but we want to create a system where you can set certain parameters, and ALEKS alerts you to things that are going on in the class. Like, tell me when a student fails a certain topic, meaning they don't learn it. And you would get an alert saying, hey, John, Sam, and Joe are struggling with this. So those are what we view as the next step. All the data is here. We've worked on summarizing it in sort of dashboard tiles. Now we want to do things like alert you and make it more productive.
About 20 minutes.
Okay, so I'll wrap up in, okay. So I hope that gives you a view of, we talked about the different roles. As far as, Karen's going to cover support and things like that, but I wanted to mention that we have something in ALEKS called the ALEKS community. So anybody with instructor or administrator access to ALEKS across the country can ask questions or share best practices in here. So when I was the product manager of ALEKS, I get an email every time one of these is submitted. I try to stay out of it because I want other folks to respond. Usually they do. So it's not like it's a propaganda thing for us. We stay out of it. The only time I jump in there is if nobody answers a question, or maybe it's a real support issue. But you could say hey, I'm teaching a lecture-based class. What have people found to be, work really well to structure it? And you'll get lots of responses, people who love this thing. Now we'll work with you to help set that up and bring in other faculty that have done it before. But this is great for just-in-time questions and things like that. So last parts here, we talked about the data and analytics piece. I did want to talk briefly about accessibility. So we've done a lot of work around ALEKS, higher ed, math, and accessibility. And the one thing I will say about accessibility is that it doesn't stop. So if somebody says, yeah, we're accessible, that doesn't mean a lot because it's a constant thing that you have to work on because a lot of things change over time. We were just evaluated by the California State University system, which put us through an extremely stringent review. They were really happy with where Alex is at today. But we know we're not done. They know we're not done, but they approved us, which was a really nice benchmark to meet. So one of the things we're working on now around accessibility is creating a directional roadmap. So what we want to know is for the next 3 years, what are our priorities going to be around accessibility and how are we going to get there? So this is something we always have in mind and we're continually working on. But these are some of the considerations. What's nice is, Alex doesn't rely on color to convey information. So if somebody is colorblind, it's not going to be an issue. It's completely keyboard navigable, so I never have to touch the mouse, so I can use the keyboard the entire time. Alex, we provide an accommodation for screen readers. And we test this. We just don't say, hey, use the screen reader. We do a lot of testing on it. That's why we have a specific configuration, because we do QA to make sure that it works. And we're creating new content based on standards.
Notice it says students with visual impairments can access certain areas of Alex. Can you be a little less vague? Yeah,
so we do turn off certain areas in Alex that, for example, there's a dictionary in the ebook. We turn off in accessibility mode because the current version of ebook is not accessible. So we keep them in the core area of the program. So we do have an accessible ebook now. We just need to get it into Alex. So what we're doing is the core functionality is there, but there's some extraneous pieces like the dictionary and things like that that are not accessible for students using a screen reader. So we turn those off. And we can give you a full list of what that is. Now, that same student could complete the core course that you've created, so it's not that. But again, as we talk about a roadmap, those are the things that we want to get back in there.
Of course.
Okay. Any last questions on Alex before we move on? Okay, cool.
All right, thanks, Matt.
Right, so I'm going to talk about McGraw-Hill's commitment to service. We kind of pride ourselves on this commitment to service, and I like to think we have a lot of the resources of a really big company, but we have that personal feel of a smaller company. These are just a couple of things that we provide. One-on-one and group instructor training and support, live webinar and on-demand videos, phone online support for students and instructors, and integration and technology consultation. So these are online and phone support, 24-hour resolution time. Every student gets a trackable case number, as well as instructors. And we have chat available for both Alex and for Connect. And they can also use the email support as well. So in the outline you provided, there was a real-time plan of assistance. So we have a service we call our top account service. There's only 20 accounts in the country that have access to this service now. It's basically for urgent situations to get immediate assistance. And we would make sure that all Tennessee Board of Regents institutions are on that top account list if they were to use our product. So real people. So not only do you get a lot of this tech support virtually, but we have a learning specialist that each instructor and institution is assigned, who is basically a product specialist. Then they also have the learning technology representative, who those are our field-based reps that are at your schools typically once every couple of weeks. And then also an implementation consultant. They're actually in Dubuque, Iowa. It's probably about -10 degrees there right now. And they are available for one-on-one webinars. They are available for email how-to questions and by phone. So each instructor has a person that they can go to if there's no one on their campus on that particular day. So this is sort of what our plan looks like. So first you would meet your implementation team, and we have this availability at the system level too. So if you all decide you want to do master courses that you're going to push down, we have that availability, but this is really at the instructor level. We want them to really feel like they have that one-to-one relationship. Course consultation, so we would set up the goals and a training plan with dates to implement. And then learning the basics. So we like to require that everyone kind of gets that basic training, learning the ins and outs of the product. And then once they've had that initial training, we can build the course based on your specifications. And we have a curriculum team that can help with this. We have digital faculty consultants who are sort of successful users of our products that can help with some best practices. But we can really even just come and sit down with an instructor and help them build their course out based on their needs. Then class start readiness. So we talked a lot about the LMS pairing. So not only can you use that implementation consultant in Dubuque to do a webinar with you to actually show you how to pair your course, we've done things like office hours where we might have a room on campus for the whole day and instructors can come and go as they please and we'll actually sit down with them and help them pair their course. But we know sometimes adjunct faculty can't get on campus, right? So we have that implementation consultant who will get on a WebEx with you and actually show you how to do this. But we like to make sure that everything is set up by the time those students come in the door. And we call it FDOC, that means first day of class. But we provide resources such as customized PowerPoints. We can do customized videos, like Volunteer State gave us access to that demo shell. So if we can work with your LMS administrator, we can get in the demo shell and actually walk through in a customized video that you can then embed in your course. And our learning technology reps will do first day of class presentations. So they basically schedule, the first 2 weeks of class and they run around on campus and they help start off your class in the first 10 minutes if you want them to. And they'll actually walk through step by step how to get students registered for the product, some best practices, kind of give them a little intro into how the product works. So, and then the training is ongoing. So once you know the basics and once you've used our course materials, we want to show you the great amount of data and reporting capabilities that we have. And you can use the information that you get from those to actually make your course better. So it's not so much an onboarding team, but it's a true implementation team. So we are with you for the life of that adoption. I did want to also mention we have an inclusive access program. So we talked about access codes earlier. We do have the ability to do codeless first day digital access. We support course fee or bursar bill models. And this is where we're able to give our best bulk pricing guarantee. And then we were asked, I think, on the outline to list some current banner products, so these are current banner partners, rather. These are just a few that are listed below that we work with. All right, so I feel like we did a pretty compelling presentation for you, but you don't have to just trust us, right? We want you to trust your colleagues. So McGraw-Hill Adaptive Technology has helped immensely with music appreciation here at Ball State. That's from Ben Graves, the chair of the Performing Arts. McGraw-Hill and Alex team exceeded our expectations with regard to timely course builds, quality training, and tech support. Our math faculty are very pleased with Alex and feel it is the best product available to meet the needs of both prerequisite and college level math students. And this is from Dean Williams at Dyersburg. Trust your colleagues and trust the data. So this is some other information we got from Deanne at Dyersburg. When we piloted co-requisites in 2015, 2016, we had 42 students self-select into co-rec intermediate algebra and only 6 finished support in intermediate algebra, 14.29%. We redesigned with Alex over the summer. The next year we could get 65.96% of them to finish without self-selecting. And this is for the reading and writing courses, similarly, that we got from Dyersburg. So you can see, here's the TBR we're looking at. My laser pointer's not working. About 62% success rates. And then here's Dyersburg right here, 84.9% after implementing Connect. So trust the data, trust your colleagues, but most of all, you have to trust in your students. I know everyone in this room does, because you wouldn't be sitting here right now if you didn't. But if you give them the right tools and you trust them, there's no limit to what they can achieve. Thank you. Do you all have any additional questions for us? Thank you for your time this morning. I know it was an early one.
I have a question. For access for students, how long do they get temporary access?
It's typically 2 weeks. Is that the same for, 2 weeks, 14 days. Yep.
I did. Question on devices, because you see all those people up there and their cell phones and stuff. Is the connected, the Andy, Alex, are they both fully usable with a smartphone or?
Yes, so Connect, Alex, you'll have to take that one.
So we,
Connect has an app.
Technically, phone isn't supported, but students use it on there. So I mean, it's not.
So there's not an app.
Yeah, we recommend like tablets like a Galaxy tablet or an iPad, not necessarily an iPhone, but we don't stop students from doing it.
Yeah, so same with English, but we do lots of student user testing. I've seen them doing their power process wheel on the importing their, typing their paper, so it is possible to do it on your phone. It was designed to be supported by the tablet.
So I have a question that comes from our use of Connect with Hotmail. What is your process for feedback to the author, frankly? I mean, we, at least, what makes me nervous about Alice is that we can't see the problems up front. We have found with any test bank and any publisher, there's a lot of stuff that and I say a lot, 3% of the questions that I would argue that the answer from all.
Okay.
If you can't see it, I guess I'm just saying, what is the process for the faculty being able to vet what they're doing, or is there none?
So, I mean, for both products have like a kind of a test bank situation where you can see the actual questions. For the adaptive in Connect, students can challenge it.
Yeah,
Instructors
not just
can also
students,
challenge.
faculty. So I have a whole team behind the English products that are monitoring weekly all of the challenges we're getting in. So just like when I demoed for you the Learn Smart Achieve adaptive assignment, I was looking from the instructor side in the student view. So as an instructor, you can actually, if you wanted to, you can go through the topic, see the questions, and if you see anything, you click a challenge, you type in your feedback. We get that, and we actually are able to deploy weekly updates. It doesn't affect your experience. You don't have to, it just goes right into the adaptive system. So we've been doing that on our English products for 4 years. I feel very confident that we, the challenges have actually reduced significantly.
That's good.
And then we've added new content as well. So, we constantly we do in-app surveys, we get feedback, we could use another learning objective on X in English. So we've been doing that for 4 years, and our challenges are way down. But we're still monitoring them because some of the challenges are students get frustrated with a question,
Sure.
But then we actually know questions that students are getting extremely frustrated with, even if they're not, there isn't a problem with the question per se. There might be, we might have to reframe it or create new learning resources. So we actually use that data, instructor and student challenges, to enhance the learning support over time.
That answer your question? But if you have specific Hofnagel's questions, your learning technology rep, you can always send that to them too. They have a direct line to all of the product developers. Anything that you all wanted to see that we didn't cover that we need to send you follow-up on? I have a list of things that I'll send follow-up. Should I send that to you, Robert? Okay. And then we have booklets in the back that have the entire TBR outline we were provided, and there's a really nifty table of contents, so you can take a look at that as well. Yeah.
What is the uptime for your product? The
I'll let-
internet uptime?
I'll let you guys.
So
take that.
Alex is around 99.9%, and actually the last 2 months it was 100%.
Okay.
So we what's really cool about Alex, this is a long answer, but I'd love to tell the story, is that even when Alex came out in 1999, we offered it as software as a service, meaning it was nothing that had to be installed. So the infrastructure was always built from the beginning to be something that never had to be taken down, to be upgraded and things like that. So our uptime is like Google, sometimes better.
So it's the same in Connect as well, and this last year was 99.9% uptime.
Thank you all very much.